Hey everybody, welcome to another video here on the channel. I'm Zach Joyner, your friendly neighborhood webmaster of Spidey-Dude.com and executive producer of the Spidey Dude Radio Network. This video is in response to the reveals that we saw last week from the Marvel Legends team. Now, I made some shorts about it, but I thought I would make a full-blown video because I've got some thoughts about pretty much everything that was revealed in this. And I wanted to kind of give it some space to be allowed to breathe and grow and kind of give us a chance to really deep dive into these figures, because this is the first big wave of 2025. And to me, it's going to be, you know, one of probably two, maybe three waves of Spider-Man next year. So like last year, this wave is kind of cut up into the 90s card retro and the more modern retro carded figures. And so I kind of wanted to talk about it. I also wanted to give some shout outs to some of the things we've reported on in the past and kind of give it in a kind of encapsulated one single video. So I hope you enjoy it. We will talk about the modern characters first, as they were kind of revealed first, and then we'll get into like the more retro carded characters in the second part of it. And then we're going to I'll talk about X-Men just kind of in general. I will try to tie it into Spider-Man. Stay tuned for that. And then we'll talk about the exclusives at the end, and also those teases that they had. So we're going to see some screenshots from the actual live stream, and those are going to be in the description down below. If I pull some images from not only Hasbro or other places, all those sources will be down in the description below. So I hope you guys will join me in this journey on talking about these new Marvel Legends. Okay, so first up, we're going to talk about Francine. Francine Fry was a character that was introduced during the Clone Conspiracy storyline, or shortly around that time, where Electro shows up and ends up getting kind of destroyed. We'll use that word. We'll use 90s show parlance. Destroys Max Dillon and becomes the new Electro. Now, eventually Max comes back, so there are two Electros running around. Stay tuned for us talking about that, probably on a future episode of the Spectacular Spider-Man, because they're actually in those books right now. Anyway, so like I say, we have Francine Fry. This is more the slightly updated version. There's no exposed midriff. You know, there was a lot of comparisons to Aftershock, which was a character that was introduced in Spider-Girl 61 or 51, excuse me, and eventually came back in Spider-Girl. I think it was later on. The editor's note will be in there, and so we saw her a couple of different times in the MC2. This is more the costume that Ryan Ottley designed whenever he took over. And for me, I am actually really for this. We've already gotten a Beetle figure, but it's kind of old. This is on the newer female articulation scheme, and she looks really good. The lightning effects are brand new. The ones in the promo shots didn't have C-clamps, so there's C-clamps that kind of clamp onto this particular character, so you can kind of pose it and do different things with these lightning effects, which are brand new. This is kind of a theme with these new 2025. They're trying to give us some new things, some new features that we didn't previously have across both the Spider-Man and the X-Men line. So with that, that's kind of Francine. I'm kind of excited for this one. I've kind of grown to like the character more and more, especially when Nick Spencer was writing her, and then even later on, she to me, it wasn't bad even when Zeb Wells was writing her. So to me, I feel like she's a worthy inclusion on the shelf. The shelf's getting increasingly crowded, but she's definitely one that I will. I don't know if I'm going to seek this one out, but this is kind of one that I'm somewhat on the fence about, just because, like, is it an essential character for me? Probably not. But I know for some people that are more fan of the modern comics, she is an essential character. So that's why we're covering her first. She was actually first revealed at the Brazil Comic-Con the day before the live stream. So because she had the yellow and green color scheme, they kind of felt it was apropos. She was also introduced with an X-Men character, which we'll talk about later on in the video. So let's talk about the next character that was more modern. And this character is one that is actually sorely needed an update for a long time. For me, this one was Agent Venom. Now, Agent Venom was a Walgreens exclusive figure way back in 2014, 2013, 2014. This figure is definitely one of those that was desperate for an update. They've reused this mold to do the Agent Anti-Venom and stuff like that. And it really desperately needed an update. And the updates we got here are, we got a new head swap, we got less guns, there's not the tendrils that it came with this particular figure, which I'm fine with. Honestly, to me, there is a bulk and heft to this mold, but this was based off of the early concept art and not the actual comics, which allows them this time to go back, tweak their articulations, all new mold, all new sculpt, and allows them to sort of redefine it. And I think it, again, sorely needed. This was kind of hard to find, starting to get expensive on the aftermarket, so it was due for an update. And that's been kind of sort of a theme over the last couple years, is that now that we're like 10 years into like this modern iteration of Marvel Legends, we're getting a lot of like redos of old molds and new molds being used to update these old figures. And I think that is actually really, really good. There's some disappointments that we had this past year, but I will tell you, overall, I think that Marvel Legends in 2025 kind of recovered from a semi not great 2023. So I think that Agent Venom is definitely a step in the right direction. I think the Flash head swap is great. I think the holster, where you can put the gun in the holster, you got the bigger gun, to me. And to give a shout out to my friend Tyler, Symbio Bro, from my old crawl space days, he gives it his stamp of approval. He's excited about this figure, and so if he's excited, then I can be excited by proxy. And this is definitely one that I do want to get, because this one looks really old on the shelf. I don't know if I'm going to keep this one. I don't know if I'm going to turn around and sell him, because there's going to be some people that prefer this. But the fact that this new one has an ab crunch and has that better articulation, I don't know. It's kind of whatever your fancy is. If you've got the original, you don't have to get this one. It's not essential. But if you feel like you need an upgrade, he's going to be available. Okay, so one that desperately was probably on a newer fans list is Spider-Boy. And I understand that there's some hot division about this character, but we get an update to the kid articulation scheme, so this is going to hopefully open up the door for more redos of maybe Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Miles Morales, who knows. So to me, this is going to be kind of, a building block figure. Now, for me, I'll be honest, as somebody that has enjoyed overall the Spider-Boy story, and while I didn't love all the elements of the story that he was brought in, I kind of, there's a charm to Slott's writing with Spider-Boy, and I've grown to appreciate it as more like a, what if we did Spidey Super Stories today? And I kind of feel that way. It kind of gives me that Hostess vibes, which I think works really well and plays to Slott's strengths. And in terms of the figure, this looks like it straight up crawled out of a Mark Bagley comic. I think the colors really pop. They teased this as one of the two teases at San Diego Comic-Con this year. And you're seeing it up on the screen. Shout out to MCU Collector for his live stream. I actually got that screenshotted from that. So thanks to him for giving us that inside look at San Diego. So we saw this shoe there, and now this was actually revealed before every other toy. This was revealed by Dan Slott, which I think, look, say what you will about Dan Slott, and I know some people don't like him, but it was cool that he got to reveal this figure. I think it was a really neat thing. I think Dan and Ryan and the team coordinating with Dan Slott to be able to reveal this figure. I think, look, you co-created a character here, and I think that getting the creator of that character to reveal the new toy, I think is really cool. So again, this is kind of a bit of a divisive figure. A lot of people, when they saw it maybe on the leak list, they thought maybe it was going to be the Amalgam Comics Spider-Boy. But once again, that is a property that's kind of mired as is most of the Amalgam line. It's mired because it's owned by two now behemoths. Obviously, we did get the DC versus Marvel omnibuses and the Amalgam Comics omnibuses this year, which was a huge surprise. Nobody really expected that, but I'm not going to expect a lot of merchandise coming out of that because it's complicated. Because the IP, who's going to make it? Is it going to be McFarlane? Is it going to be Hasbro? There is some rumors that the Hasbro license is going to expire at the end of 2025, but at least for right now, we know that that they're in the negotiating period, I think, starting next year. So, look, the fact of the matter is we've got several figures that are coming out long term in 2025. So I'm not expecting anything big changes. But again, if DC goes to Hasbro or McFarlane somehow loses the DC license, then it's a entirely different story, and we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting either way. So, like I say, that's all about Bailey. I'm fairly excited about it. I really like the alternate head swap. I think like I say, the colors pop. It looks like it crawled straight out of a Marvel comic, which is what you want for a Marvel Legends. Okay, so let's talk about the retro card releases. And first up is somewhat of it's a long requested figure. This figure, especially, I see it like on Spider-Man Twitter a lot. Like, this design has the animated series has a cult following. So I'm not surprised, especially in light of Spider-Verse, that we saw this in a Marvel Legends figure. This is actually the second now third animated series that has gotten a actual official Legends figure. The first being the Amazing Friends, and the 90s show has gotten now two different figures, the one on the Walmart retro card and the recent 2-pack with Vulture. This time we have Spider-Man Unlimited. Now, there is precedent for him being in the comics. He was actually in a 2-part story in Web Spinners, Tales of Spider-Man, written by Howard Mackey. So I remember reading that book back in the day. Actually, I think I read it in Spider-Man Universe, which was like a collection of like Web Spinners, Amazing, and Peter Parker all in one book. And I remember reading that story, and I was like, kind of interesting. So yeah, it's definitely one that people like this design. They like how it looks. Some people like it because it reminds them of Spider-Man 2099, and which is kind of the complicated history of that particular series. I'll be honest, I'm happy to see him in action figure form. It's completely new sculpt. It looks interesting. I know some people are kind of upset with the colors and the lack of cell shading, which is kind of one of those things that kind of makes me laugh a little bit, simply because people complained about the cell shading when the cell shading was on other characters, but now we want cell shading on this particular character. So it's like Hasbro can never win. Though somebody did photo manipulate it, and I'll be honest, it looks great. I anticipate that if there's ever a re-release of this figure, maybe when the next Spider-Verse movie comes out, they could probably repackage this figure and put it out there. I think a lot of people will be even happier. And then there's got these people that have this one. This can be the comic version, and then that one can be the animated version. Like I say, this one is one I will probably get at least one of, if not two, because I like the design, and it does. While I don't love the series, actually, I'm not going to say I don't love the series, because it's been so long since I've watched it. In fact, we're going to next year, for our Patreon subscribers, we're going to watch Spider-Man Unlimited and do commentaries for our Patreon. Check out our Patreon page at the link down in the description for more. But for me, this one is like, okay, I think it's also kind of hilarious that it's on the 90s show card back, because the 90s show and this show are two different shows. It didn't get its own custom card back, but it gets on the 90s show card back. It does represent the 90s to me, a part of the 90s, and yeah, kind of fun. So let's talk a little bit about the one that is actually the one that matches the actual card back, and it seems like, every year we kind of get one now that is actual legit from the show, and it feels like it's designed from the show. Now we've kind of gotten that back and forth since this retro card wave started in 2020. And this one is definitely one that was oft requested, a animated series version of Chameleon. Now, there's going to be some people that say, hey, like, it's not technically accurate because it's got the mask and he used the little button on his belt. And people were like, well, the belt should be detachable so you could put it on different characters. And look, this is an all new sculpt. It's a really clean sculpt. It's a really nice sculpt. And it really looks like it came straight out of the 90s. Now, they said on the stream the reason for the J. Jonah Jameson mask was to reference the fact that in the original Toy Biz packaging, he had different head swaps. Guys, you can still use the head swaps. And if you're like me, unfortunately, I used to have the Chameleon until he was chewed on by a dog. Anyway, so I still got the head from that original figure. I just need to buy a new suited figure, and that mask is probably going to go with that figure. I also anticipate that there's going to be some time down the line we'll see like the classic, in the bomber jacket with the ascot maybe. And I know there was some people like my friend Greg, shout out Greg Bashansky, that was like, I hope it's going to be a comics version of Chameleon because it's been so long. It was the Rhino wave. That wave became really expensive over time. It's not a cheap figure. It was a nice figure, and I loved it until it got chewed. It's one of two figures that got chewed. The other one was the Jackal, which for many people is probably a cause of celebration, but for me, it just makes me big sad. Anyway, so let's, like I say, I think the Chameleon figure looks great. I think the accessories he comes with are great. I think the card back looks great. This one definitely hits me in the 90s nostalgia. I don't remember having the original figure back from Toy Biz days, but this one was one that I was like, okay, if we get it, I'm cool. I really expected him to be in a 2-pack, but they said they were going to kind of sunset the 2-pack for 2020 in 2024. Maybe they'll bring back the VHS 2-packs later next year or in 2026, but I really have enjoyed the more animated series figures, and so this one's definitely going to be one that I get for my shelf because I feel like we need it. Okay, so we finally get to the figure that, I'll be honest, when I heard about it in leaks, I heard about it in rumors and innuendo, and I held my breath. I held my bated breath. I was like, please let this be real. The 90s Kaine has been something that we have not seen in a 6-inch form ever, and it's been an oft requested figure for now almost 20 plus years. Going back to the Spider-Man Classics line, I wanted to see a Kaine. The only time we saw Kaine from the 90s in a action figure form was, well, in this 8-pack that was half reuse. There was, I think it was almost all reuse and repaints, but it was titled Maximum Clonage. I remember being able to get it on eBay for like $80 back in the day, and I didn't, and I feel like an idiot because I wish I had. I was big sad. It's one of the better multi-packs that they did back in the day with reuse, and I really enjoyed it. But this figure, let's talk about it for a second. I think the sculpting is great. The fact they could have painted the veins on the character, but it being new sculpting is really exceptional. The colors look great. It looks like a Mark Bagley, Stephen Butler Kaine to me. It looks like even Sal Buscema Kaine. Definitely takes me back to that very first issue where I saw Kaine in the shadows and he's stalking Peter and Mary and Ben Reilly, and to me, inject it in my veins. I needed this figure. This is one that last year the Scarlet Spider figure was the one that I was like, I gotta get 2 of. I don't care if I get 2 of anything else of this wave. I gotta get 2, and I did. And I made sure I did, because this was the one that I was like, I'm going to crawl on broken glass for, because I desperately want this figure. This is the most requested figure I've had for 20 years, 25 years, and we're finally getting it in 2025. Thank goodness, because this is a long overdue figure. I think the head sculpt is great. The hair is great. Now, there's some people saying that the hair maybe not dark enough or whatever, but I'm like, I can slap some paint on it. I don't care. Give me the figure. And they did a great job. I think the artwork that is on the 90 show retro card just makes it even sweeter. So definitely these last three, I'm going to at least get two. The first three, I may just get one and for the shelf, and that's it. For me, this is a really nice collection of figures. Gonna go up for pre-order depending on when this goes out. It'll be on pre-order December 12th, 1 p.m. Eastern, and it's going to be across all platforms. So, Big Bad Toy Shop, Entertainment Earth, Hasbro Pulse, they're all going to have it available there. Like I say, I think this wave is some that are oft requested. This just, like the Chameleon figure goes to show that it was a figure that was desperately wanted. And, you know, this wave to me feels like a wave of, hey, this is for the fans. And I hope that this wave sells well. There's some people saying that Spider-Boy's going to end up in Ollie's, or Francine's going to end up in Ollie's. Though I think she's going to actually be a little more popular because of those lightning effects. I don't know, man. Like, I'm at the point where I'm never going to anticipate the sales of any of these things, but I'm definitely going to be interested in getting them long term, and I really, really am looking forward to it. So, like I say, for me, there's some exclusives we'll talk about at the end of the show or the episode. But for me, the Kaine figure is like a must-have. You know, I've seen some really great customs that have been done over the years, and I think that Kaine was one of those. I think they saw that there was a demand for it because people were getting customs and spending money on customs, and we finally got it. To me, that's a perfect figure. I think Agent Venom is a perfect figure because he's a little more svelte and maybe he's not as bulky, but he's a little more. But that we're getting more articulation compared to the two. I think Spider-Man Unlimited just looks pretty good. I know some people are complaining, but it's like people are going to complain anyway. The Chameleon figure looks like it's straight up John Semper 90s. And like I say, I like Spider-Boy. I like Francine. To me, I could wrap up this video and just not talk about the rest of the figures, but I definitely wanted to get these out first, and obviously Kaine being the one that I desire the most. I kind of feel like I had to talk about it a little bit more than some of the others. One thing I did want to point out before we kind of transition to the X-Men stuff, and I'm doing this in the editing portion of the video, was I wanted to give a shout out to Harry Moore, the designer of the card backs that have been the retro card backs since 2020. He's basically taken inspiration from those old Toy Biz stuff and kind of put the spin on it, looked at what the actual character looks like, and incorporates that into the artwork. He's posted his artwork on and off on his Instagram in particular. He posts a lot of that, but he also posted it on Twitter, which I retweeted and you know, was really thankful. He also brought up that old Maximum Clonage box set and how he had worked. That was one of the first things he did when he was at Toy Biz. He was working for an advertising agency, and they helped design that box. So some of that artwork is inspired by, I believe the Kaine was actually inspired by the cover to Maximum Clonage, the Web of Spider-Man issue. And so that's kind of cool. He posted, you know, you're seeing on the screen, you're seeing the different designs. I think I may try to pull some more of them. Obviously, link will be down in the description for him, but I wanted to be able to give that to you guys here and kind of talk about that and give him some flowers, so to speak. I mean, that's really freaking cool. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of source stuff that I'm going to be adding to this video for very specific reasons. And I hope you appreciate the work that I'm trying to do to make sure that people, you find where these people are. So thanks again, and let's get back to the rest of the video where we're going to be talking about X-Men. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the X-Men figures. And some of these are updates to other figures. Some of these are brand new figures. Some of these are nostalgic figures. Some of these were part of a fan choice panel that was going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. So you can tell that the guys love X-Men. And look, as a Spidey fan, I get it. But X-Men just gets me confused half the time. Me and Greg Bashansky have talked about this too, where we're like, I don't know what's going on half the time. I'm enjoying reading the Krakoan era of X-Men personally, but yeah, there's just a lot of the lore I'm just not into. So let's start with the Wolverine. This is one that is like an apology figure. And they were trying to figure out the time frame of when the original came out. And this one was pretty noticed about early Hasbro, late Toy Biz Marvel Legends. The head sculpt was terrible. The articulation was not great. The claws were laughable. It was a bad figure. It was Ultimate Wolverine, so those that want Ultimate Wolverine, they can finally get it. And that's kind of like, you know, hey, we finally did it right, so to speak. Next up was one that was already revealed in Brazil. Like I mentioned, there was the Francine figure. The Fabian Cortez figure for me was one that I was like, oh yeah, I remember that from the 90s show. So I'm like, okay, I know that character. Not gonna get it, but like, okay, you know, for those that are nostalgia for that, I can see people getting that figure. And then we get to Gambit from Age of Apocalypse, which was a figure that, you know, they've done a couple of Age of Apocalypse waves. They finally include Gambit in here. This was actually Ryan Ting's figure that he was going to reveal at San Diego Comic-Con, but since he didn't win, basically they had a contest where Dwight, Ryan, and Dan, all three had like their own figures that they were going to reveal whoever won the poll, and this was the one that Ryan was going to reveal, but he didn't win the poll. What did win the poll was the Nightcrawler, the X-Force Nightcrawler, which is using the newer sculpt of the X-Men 97 Nightcrawler with the pinless joints. That's something that I didn't mention on the Spider-Man stuff. I think everything in the Spider-Man wave is completely pinless, which is nice. This wave, similarly, I think everything's completely pinless. We get to Cyclops, which is notable for, like I say, the Nightcrawler is basically just a repaint, but if you like that version of Nightcrawler and like that version of X-Force, definitely one you want to pick up. We get to another sort of repaint. They had done the blue and white with the old Bucky cap body. This is Cyclops in the new Vulcan body, which is the new standard mold body for Marvel Legends. And completely penless, X-Factor Cyclops. Notable, though, here for the blast effect. You know, they've had this blast effect that they've packed in a lot of these Cyclops figures over the last several years. This one has the one where it's projecting and it looks like it's actually hitting something or hitting like a wall or a piece of glass, which is kind of cool. And I think them trying to experiment more with that type of stuff really, I think, adds depth to these releases. And then we get to like the two that I think are interesting, and they kind of have a bit of Spider-Man history. Obviously, X-Factor, Cyclops, and Spider-Man, they did, I believe, team up in Marvel Team Up. Nightcrawler teamed up with Spider-Man on Marvel Team Up. Wolverine is Wolverine. But these two I can remember in my mind's eye. Now, last year we got Chamber and another character whose name is St. Croix, and from Generation X. This year we're getting Husk, which is in the Generation X costume, and she's kind of notable because she has like powers where she tears away her flesh and reveals like a metal underskeleton. And so they were kind of talking about that this was like a super gross looking figure, that they had kind of done something similar like with the body transformation stuff from the Punisher 2-pack. So there's really some sweet action shots of her like ripping her face off because she's got this piece, which is, you know, it's choice, but it allows people to display the character as they want and gives them options. And I think that's always good. On the new pinless body, female body, I think this is based on the Shriek body, so very similar to the St. Croix body from last year. But yeah, we got some new options for the head sculpts and stuff like that. Then we get to one of the more interesting figures in Spider-Man history. Oh, yeah. Thing about Husk that I was going to mention, Spider-Man connection for me at least, was I remember this character not from Generation X or anything like that. I remember her from a Pat Olive drawn Marvel team up that came out in 1997. This was like the thing he did right after Untold Tales. And yeah, I remember him in that first issue and Husk being there. You can actually read it on Marvel Unlimited. It's only got that first issue of that series, but that was collected like for 11 issues. So I remember that in my mind's eye. And I remember Peter making jokes about like, whoa, I didn't want to see that. So yeah, there's that. Then we get Marvel versus Capcom Marrow, and a lot of people are Marvel versus Capcom fans, and there's going to be a lot of Marvel versus Capcom allegedly style of figures that are going to be released this year that are people that are fans of that, since they just did that re-release this year for current gen consoles. I think that, you know, people are wanting more of this. And so Marrow, there was like a one shot that was of Marrow and Peter. I thought it was an annual that they did, but it was just a Spider-Man Marrow one shot. I remember reading that in the bullpen bulletins back in the day. I don't think I've ever read it. And then she made an appearance early on in the Mackie Byrne reboot era too. Again, an issue that I think I don't know if I have. I barely remember it. Let's put it that way. And then there was I think the first time they interacted was actually during Operation Zero Tolerance, which for people that have watched X-Men 97, you know what that's all about. So Peter and Marrow have had several run-ins with each other over the years, and I thought it was kind of interesting. So look at me. You don't know, well, yeah, you notice there's a different hat on. So editing Zach here, I was almost done with this video, other than a few more like tweaks and mods and nips and tucks. And then I realized I was getting all the way to the end and we never talked about the Build-A-Figure for the X-Men wave. So X-Men do get a Build-A-Figure this year. This is what happens when you're editing at 1 o'clock in the morning. Just don't do it, kids. Do it in normal working hours. So X-Men do get a Build-A-Figure, and the Build-A-Figure is one that they had to come up almost with a new name, because it's nicknamed Nemesis, but I think it's actually called Massacre. But they couldn't put that on a box. So I will say this Build-A-Figure, Dwight called it one of his top figures he's ever done. And there's a lot of design elements here that it's a very cool Build-A-Figure. I will say, aesthetically, even though I know nothing about this character, I can appreciate cool figures. It kind of reminds me of Odin this year in the 85th anniversary line, where Odin was really intricate and detailed. And it's kind of similar here. I am a little frustrated as a Spider-Man fan, not going to lie, that we have not gotten a Build-A-Figure in a Spider-Man wave in years. The last time we saw it, if there's not one by the end of 2024, or 2025, excuse me, it will now have been 6 years since we had a Build-A-Figure in the Spider-Man line. Now, they've kind of sort of replaced and made Spider-Man exclusively on blister cards because they sell well. I get it. But it's the blister card that's selling. Doesn't mean I don't want more. I would like a Build-A-Figure. I would like to see that, especially now that we have the new packaging and the new designs, which all these X-Men are in the new packaging you see up on your screen. So, like I say, it's one of those things where I was like, oh crap, I forgot to talk about the Build-A-Figure. I was looking through my notes and I was like, wait, I still got graphics that I did. Yeah, considering I've already redone this video already once, I want to use everything I had. Come on, man. Anyway, now we'll get to the exclusives, starting with the Professor X that is X-Men related. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the exclusives. We had a Amazon, a Walmart, and a Target exclusive. So it kind of covers the gamut of what the most recent exclusives have been. So we'll start with the Target exclusive, Professor Charles Xavier in the Savage Land outfit. Now, a lot of people were kind of peeved about how they revealed that this was Savage Land Professor X, because they brought out Zabu, they brought out Kazar, because it's like, it's a theme, and everybody thought, well, if it's a theme, maybe it's Shauna the She-Devil. And considering that it's Target, and Target has gotten a lot of female figures over the last few years that were exclusives, like Warbird and the Black Widow, thinking, okay, well, maybe we're getting Shauna the She-Devil. No, we're not. We're getting the Charles Xavier. So a little bit of a switcheroo there. I think some people were a little miffed and upset by that. But then we get to the two exclusives that I'm more excited about. The first is one that you might not have to wait too long to get. So it sounds like this one's not going to be a pre-order, but it's going to be released very, very soon. It is the Spider-Man No Way Home Lizard. Now, this is sort of it's a first-time release, but sort of not. So in that kind of weird tweener era from 2010 to 2014, we had the Amazing Spider-Man 1 wave that was Walmart exclusive, that was Legends scale, but not really branded Legends. And it was, this particular Lizard is not easy to find. In fact, for me, trying to find images for it was kind of difficult. So I apologize for the quality of this image, but so it's definitely a figure that I was like, okay, I would like to see. Now, we've gotten the two deluxe figures with Doc Ock and with the Green Goblin. Obviously, those were two really well-received figures. I have not gotten my hands on Green Goblin, but I did get the Doc Ock, and it's one of my favorite figures of the year. I hope to get Green Goblin next year, hopefully. And then we get the Lizard here. So this is the third of the 5 villains that were deluxe figures. The Sandman was a figure that was part of the No Way Home wave, which I think a lot of people really liked that figure in terms of like, hey, this is kind of fun. So that we've gotten 4 of the 5. They kind of insinuated while they were discussing this that Jamie Foxx probably will happen, possibly in 2025, but possibly beyond. So maybe we'll get Jamie Foxx at the end of the year next year to complete the set and complete that team of villains. I hope to see it sooner, but if not, we'll see it then. I can tell you that the original ASM2 Electro is one that's sorely needing an update because it's not really good. It looks extremely dated compared to the other Legends. And obviously, since we got the new version of Andrew Garfield, hopefully we'll get a new version. Even though I don't love that version of Electro, maybe we'll get a new version of that. But I definitely want to see the Jamie Foxx No Way Home Electro show up sooner rather than later. So yeah, definitely excited for that. And then finally, the exclusive that I'm probably most excited about is the 77 series Spider-Man. So I remember as a kid watching that made for TV. It was not a movie. It was put together as a movie and released internationally, like the pilot. But it was like an 8-episode series. There's like an infamous clone episode that people want me to review and watch. I've only seen the clip of of like him, pulling a pew pew on Peter, and the dialogue's just inadvertently hilarious. But for me, this is like a figure that I'm like, okay, this is cool. It's on the newer style packaging, but it's got that retro feel with the way the Spider-Man is. The head sculpt is great. It's got new sculpted pieces. It is a little bit of reuse, well, a lot of reuse from the Japanese Spider-Man. So that also comes with an attachable string, so it looks like the way his webbing looked in the series. So I'm down for it. My friend Brad, I talked to him. He said he was going to get that particular figure when it came out. I told him it would probably be Marchish, possibly summer before it comes out. Just kind of depends. It's Walmart, so Walmart this year, I felt like, had a little bit better track record when it came to their exclusives. The Prowler was available and then not available and then became available again. The Venom, same thing, has been consistently available for people. So I think they're getting better in terms of the distribution of these particular figures. Although in the past, Walmart's had some issues with their releases. Sometimes we get issues with the delivery, if it's in a bubble mailer versus a box. You know, the Venom came in a box. My Prowler came in a bubble mailer, so we'll see. I've got another one that went on sale, so I ended up snagging it for like my own Christmas present to myself. So I'll actually have unboxed all of the, well, almost both the Walmart exclusives this year and the main wave. I don't need the Carnage. Just don't need it. I already have a really good Carnage thanks to Vinkman. So speaking of, I won't talk about the future too much. I'm just going to kind of go to our patrons and thank them for their support this year. I really have appreciated it. Patreon.com/SpideyDude Network is the easiest way for you to support what we do here at the website. Also, if you want to check out, if you want to start your own podcasts, you can also, there's a StreamYard link, affiliate link in the description. It just helps out the channel. You get a special like $10 off your first month, so you can try it out, see if you like it. If you want to go from the free version to like the basic version, and you get it for a little discount with my offer code in the referral box checkout. So we've got our patrons over on patreon.com/Spidey Network. You see our spectacular patrons and our VIPs, thanks to those guys and gals. We've also got our friendly neighborhood tier that's up on the screen as well. And then you have your sensational tiers, and we really do appreciate everybody that are sensational tiers. Thank you guys for your support. We got all sorts of exclusive goodies. Speaking of Spider-Man Unlimited, I mentioned it earlier, but Spider-Man Unlimited, we're going to be talking about and review and doing watch-alongs of that, so you can watch the show and maybe pull it up on your Disney Plus app and watch along with us. That would be kind of fun. We'll be doing that once a month. Books of X, we'll be recording new books of X very, very soon, so check it out over on patreon.com/Baidu Network. And of course, the video version of the video version of Voices from the Eyrie, a Gargoyles podcast. You can always check out those video versions of the show over on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Spidey Network. And of course, you can always check everything out on our social medias like Facebook, Instagram, Threads. You can also check us out on Twitter/X. I've got a Blue Sky. I've got to use it a little bit more. I just activated the account, so I'll try to do some cross platform in there. And of course, you can find us on the YouTube page. If you're already watching us on YouTube, thank you. If you have not already liked and shared and subscribed, please do so. We really do appreciate it. It helps us out with those YouTube algorithms. And hopefully you like this video. Let me know. Leave comments in this comment section down below. I will answer them as quickly and as best I can. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of everything. And we'll see you next time here on the Spidey Dude Radio Network.